Hey folks, welcome back to another review with yours truly, Sam Healy. Today we're taking a look at V-Commandos. This is a game that I was introduced to back at UKGE this year, and I was able to play it again at Gen Con with the designer, and then when they were finished making all the copies, he sent a review copy for us to review, and so here we are. I've talked about this on a couple of different occasions of late, and I think you already know that I enjoy the game. But I'm eager to teach you the basics of how to play the game and hopefully give you a good taste of how it works. So let's get down to the table and I'll show you. The first thing you do in a game of V-Commandos is you have to choose an operation. So I've chosen Operation Black Tea here, which took place in Norway in February 1943. Now, a couple of things that the operation card shows you is that, first of all, it shows you how long you can expect to play. So this specific scenario takes about 2 hours. And this is how many commandos can take part in the action. Then if you flip that operation card over, it shows you the different terrain sets that are going to be used for this operation, and it also shows you how they have to be taken out. For example, the streets and the bridges have to be accomplished at the same time, and then that unlocks the fuel depot. Then you would pull out the 3 different terrain cards that come with it, and this basically gives you how the maps are set up on the board. Down here, this means how many commandos can be on this terrain, which is important because if any more than that come onto this terrain, which is the entire map, then the alarm is automatically raised, which can happen because if one commando finishes his mission first, he can travel over to the other one if the other guys are having problems. So for example, this guy, the bridges down here in the bottom part of the table, 2 commandos are going to go on that mission, and then for the streets, which is up here on the top level up here, 1 commando will go on that, and then once both of these, if both of these are finished successfully, then we'll move on to the fuel depot, which as you can see can hold up to 4 different commandos at the same time. Terrain cards, you have special, the objective of this particular part of the mission, all of the different tokens that are going to be necessary for the board, how the board is laid out. Additionally, the operation will come with a card that gives a basic rundown of what the operation was all about, why they were going on the operation, and so forth and so on. And then on the back side, there are special rules that will govern each of the different areas. So if you look at the back of the operation card again, you'll see that they have this little icon here that says special on both ends, and that means that those specific 2 terrains are going to have special rules that will govern how that plays. Now each game turn in V-Commandos is split up into 4 different phases. The first phase is the event phase, where you're going to take an event card from the deck here and flip it over for each terrain that is in play. So one will have to be put in play for the streets, and then another one will be put in play down here for the bridges. They provide movement direction for enemy units on the board, and they also provide some type of small rule change during this turn. Second is the commando phase, where the commandos will be able to move about the terrain using up to 3 actions if they want to try to accomplish that terrain's goals. Then you also have the enemy phase. The enemy phase is broken up into 3 parts, where you have a reinforcement phase, where each of these entry points are going to be spawning new enemies. And then there will be a movement phase, where the enemy units that are on the board will move in the direction of the event card showing here. And then you'll have a shooting phase, where if there is a visible commando on the terrain that the enemy soldiers can see, then they will shoot at him. Then after that, we go back to the end of turn phase, where we check for victory. If the victory over this specific terrain, if these requirements have been met or not. If they have, then we can shut this terrain down and focus on just the one, or move on to the next set of terrain that the operation has set forth. So for an example here, the first thing that I would do here as the sapper is I would enter the hex, enter the terrain using a trapdoor, which is 1 action, and then I can move to this one and remain stealthy like this, but as soon as I enter this terrain and there's an enemy present, I have to make a stealth check, which means I have to roll 1 die for every enemy unit that is on that piece of the board, and if I roll a 1 or a 2, which I didn't, but if I roll a 1 or a 2, since it has the little eyeball right here, as you can see, that means that I've been detected. But I rolled a 6, so I'm okay. And then my second action, well, that was my second action. My third action is going to be to close combat assault this guy, so I'm going to do that and take him off of the board. Now, as soon as that attack was complete, that would have dropped an equipment token here, which I pull out of the bag and we place it on the blue side here. I think I am going to go ahead and pick it up and put it on my sheet like that, because my card, because that can be used to open a locked door later on in the future. So that's a good thing to have. But now the scout can come in. That's 1 to enter the terrain, 2 to move on to this, and 3 to defuse that part of the bomb. Now, the problem here is that now I'm on a reinforcement tile, which can be very bad, but we'll see how it works out. So over here on the streets terrain, Sergeant Bruno is going to enter here for 1 action, and then for his second and third actions, he's going to move stealthily from here to here. Now, the reason he had to use 2 actions to do that is because whenever you move onto a medium tile, you have to use an extra action to stay stealthy. Otherwise, you become seen. Basically, you are flipped over to this side, the alarm is triggered, and things begin to hit the fan very quickly. So he's going to spend 1, 2, 3 so he can remain stealthy. Now, in the enemy phase, we're going to be taking the enemy reserve here, and we're going to be populating all of the different spaces, spawn points basically, where we have enemy units coming onto the board. Now, we'll be pulling out, first of all, okay, we have a Mauser unit here, and over here we have another Mauser unit come out here. Over here in this building we have another Mauser unit, and over here we have another Mauser unit. Okay, so that's it for this one. Now over here we have 1 unit coming here and 1 unit coming over here. Now, once all enemies have been deployed, the first immediate thing that we have to do here is that whenever an enemy unit shows up on a hex where we are, if we're stealthy, we have to make stealth checks. So the sapper and the scout here both have to make stealth checks. So the sapper first is seen, and the scout is still stealthy, but that does raise the alarm, which means that next turn this is going to be not a fun place to be over here. The movement phase happens where enemy units that are on the board are going to have to move in the direction that is denoted by the event card. So, for example, this guy is different. We'll get to him in just a few moments. Over here, since Sergeant Bruno is still stealthy, this person will simply move here, and this person will move over here, like that. Here, however, units are not going to move in the direction denoted here. They're going to move in the direction of the nearest visible commando, unless they are protecting a triangular shaped tile. So this guy here, instead of moving north like the card said, he's going to move over here this way. This person will move this way. This person will move this way. Now the shooting phase will begin, and here we have the sapper that is going to be the target of 1, 2 shots, but they will be rolled separately. So here we're looking at a 4 or higher, since that is the kind of terrain that is in this tile here. There is a 4 or higher to hit. So the German unit rolls, and he rolls a 1, which does not score a wound. And now the second guy over here that is adjacent still can shoot, rolls a 6, so that does hit our sapper for 1 wound there. And that's the end as far as the shooting phase is concerned. Each group that shoots only shoots once. They don't continue shooting or anything like that. And that's generally how the game is played. It's a very basic example, but you kind of get the gist of how everything flows. Now, the mission will be considered a success as long as at least one person is able to accomplish all of the objectives and exit the terrain successfully. And then when you get, for example, in this situation, if the sapper has died here, which is probable, there will only be 2 commandos left to go on that 3rd mission. So there is that. It's an interesting little game, heavily relies on stealth. I think you can see from what happened here how bad everything can go if you don't do your best to remain stealthy.